Alright, welcome back to Outland. So, our first business to do is to get our character on par with the flashback that we have seen. And yeah, this is gonna be your minor hub. From this point, you will be able to find like three or four, sorry, four, I think, different sub areas. And every time you complete one, you will be teleported back here, conveniently enough. Later on, you will also gain some kind of fast travel device that will allow you. For now, it's time to enter the jungle. Obvious joke, obvious music joke is obvious.
What, Jungle Boogie?
No, not that. More like Welcome to the Jungle, please.
Alright.
Again, the enemy variety is pretty fine. There's not much. You have the armadillos, sometimes that will charge towards you and explode. You have these porcupines that traverse the platforms, kind of like the enemies in Metroid. You have spiders, both small and giant, so those will be kind of hard to take down. And later on, you will get other stuff like also humans.
Oh, nice.
Anyway, Dwaves in the meantime told me instead who the voice actor of the narrator is. I forgot the specific name, I'll check in the meantime, but he's the same guy who voiced Jarvis in the Iron Man 2 video game. So apparently there's that. It's weird because most sources don't even credit him. So I don't remember if it's mentioned also in the credits or not.
I mean, Vision. Not Jarvis.
That's the thing, that the version of that video game was done before, they had introduced the concept of imbued vision. Again, the MCU did a lot of things just to streamline the things instead of overcomplicate, which is fine by me. Even though it would have been, I think it would have been just fine if they acted for a more direct type of adaptation, but whatever. Things just happened.
Wasn't Ultron the one who made Vision?
No.
Sorry, in the movie. In the comic, it was a robot that was done using the brain patterns of Wonder Man.
Okay.
The problem is that the MCU has never introduced Wonder Man up until the time we're recording this.
Okay, here's the thing. It wasn't so much Ultron that created Vision. It's more Tony created Vision, basing it a bit off of Ultron schematics.
And you have to remember that Ultron originally was created by Hank Pym, not Tony Stark.
Yeah, I was watching Earth's Mightiest Heroes, and like, this was before Age of Ultron even was a thing. Because in that one,
I will say this though, Age of Ultron is one of the few things not to influence the comics, because they have been in no hurry to try and emulate that movie, for obvious reasons. So, what are we doing here?
Again, moving forward, like I mentioned, there is not much story to go through with this game. You have the premise: the person is sick and is seeking for a cure. I kind of like the idea that they went through a very neutral kind of design, so you don't really have like a potential, not necessarily controversy, but a potential, someone claiming that it's just a guy that is not native that comes in to save the day through this local legend. No, it could be easily just a person that lives there. The genericness actually helps in this case. There are these two sisters that need to destroy the world, so we need to reach them in our full power before that, so we can actually defeat them. And essentially, it's a quest for power. Get as much powerful as possible, and then reach the sister and try to get them back to sleep. And in the process, try not to get killed.
So basically, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep!
Pretty much. Sadly, we don't have cat enemies.
Wow.
I do like this art style.
I know, right? It's very stylistic. Like I said, this type of contrast was all over the rage at the time. Like I mentioned, you had games like DuckTales Remaster, Rayman Origins, all the platforms that you can think of. Donkey Kong Country Returns.
Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah.
I get the feeling It probably started with Lost in Shadow for the Wii.
Thank you for that teabagging there, Tio.
Jova, I'm just
It was
grooving.
also-
I'm kind of just grooving to the music, but I have to wait. Sorry.
Sonic Lost World had a level like this. So.
Yeah, it did.
Again, every platformer, it was kind of all over age. Now it has subsided, courtesy also of the bit of a starvation of actual platformers. I don't think, okay, at least mostly 2D like platformers. I don't think Yooka-Laylee in Impossible Hair as a level like this. Anyway, occasionally you will find these statues that spending the Dorados that you can find, you can even upgrade your health, our containers, or another bar that you will get later on, one dedicated to your special attacks. There we go. But yeah, like I said, this was all over the rage. I think what helps it better is how elaborate the background is despite everything. It's one thing that everything about, the good thing about the contrast is that what is in the background is just as important as what is in the foreground. The two things have to coexist on an equal level. And I do believe that the details of this background actually helps with how more quote-unquote simplistic the foreground can be, considering it's mostly just silhouetted black. It still has some details, as you can see, like with the intricacies of the trees, for example, but it's still very simplistic at its core. And it will never be like just stale, as you can see. We're still in the jungle, but the shades of green have changed to a more tranquil kind of palette. Again, it's pretty much clear that who did this had a clear vision in mind, and with the experience of the shooters like Ikaruga that employed similar gimmicks to this, color palette and balance were very important. There you go. Use these particular armadillo enemies, as soon as they fought you, they take a bit of charge and they bomb rush at you and explode. I don't know why.
So this game was made. I forgot exactly when was this made.
2011. Though it received a Steam port in 2014. Sadly, no release on modern consoles. I think it's a bit of a shame. At least a Switch port would be neat. But in this thing, I can tell you, this thing is very easy to run over stuff these days.
How
The Steam version runs even.
Considering Ubisoft needs more stuff to pump out besides open world games.
Okay. How old is this game?
Joe? 10 years. Actually, this is the 10-year anniversary. It would be actually a very neat kind of approach to have.
Man,
and keep in mind, I think, mind you, that this is still owned by Ubisoft at this point. I'm gonna check the Steam page quickly in the meantime, but I think it's still owned by Ubisoft, not Housemarque. Anyway, time to get your first major power-up.
I think I can explain the weirdness with not re-releasing this game. Ubisoft are just freaking weird with what they will or will not pay attention
more news
to.
at 11. And there you go. We received the light. The blue light.
With the Wii U tablet stylus pen. Honestly, that does kind of sound like a lead into one of those drawing power-ups you see in video games.
But the road was still long, and the way hidden in shadow.
All right. Okay. It might not necessarily be tied to Ubisoft. At least on Steam, the game is self-published by Housemarque.
That would explain why it hasn't been re-released, I suppose, if maybe they're just content to have
considering
it
we're
on Steam.
more buddy-buddy with Sony, at least on the PS5 it would be neat to see, because this was only a digital distribution for the PS3, So at least, I'm not asking necessarily a physical release, Okay, if we will present, will be an extra, a neat extra, but at least it's something of a digital re-release on the PS5. At least I don't know. I get the idea that it would be so easy to port these things without too much costs.
Oh, we do, definitely. I mostly get the feeling that Housemarque has probably moved on, and I guess maybe they're thinking of maybe doing that maybe at some point down the line. But probably right now, because recently Housemarque this is actually recent news that happened in between part 1 and now. Recently, Housemarque has put up a job listing for a new lead producer on a new project. So they're already finished Returnal, and they're already starting their new major project. We don't know what it is yet.
I also get the idea that they're probably going to try multitasking again, considering how the team has expanded since the days they did this. I don't know. I can tell you this, without spoiling too much, the game ends in an open way. Not necessarily a cliffhanger, but it still leaves the door open for a sequel, ideally. And why I don't think they necessarily have to do that, like I mentioned in the first part, at least like a spiritual successor, something that has the same gameplay style but a different setting altogether. I think the print is there to do something on this kind of level. I don't know.
Perhaps.
Anyway, you got the light spirit, the blue energy. What this means, like I mentioned previously, you can absorb every attack everything that is blue, in terms of energy attack, and the enemy, and you can damage only the enemies that are of the opposite color, red. That means also that the game now will have a set of challenges where you get potentially sprayed by red energy, so you need to avoid these kind of lasers. While at first it tutorialized you by showcasing the fact that the blue spraying energy lasers did not hurt you anymore. One thing that you also have to get used a bit to is the calculation of jumping. In other games, the jumping seems a bit less potent. Oh yeah, there are also a set of co-op challenges. I'm not doing that because I don't have no one to play with this. But no. Oh god, I lost my train of thought. Okay, right. It tutorialized you with the fact that the blue energies did not hurt you anymore. But okay, I was at the jumping point. Okay, in this game, like I mentioned, your character jumps a lot, and a key component is the wall jump, kind of like in some Prince of Persia titles. So you need to actually calculate. There are some cases where you think you can do a wall jump, but you can't, and kind of the opposite, where you think you can pass an obstacle, but it's easier if you can just do an actual wall jump, while it seems impossible at first. Anyway, also new enemy types, plants, of course, Jova, killer plants, that also sprays bullets around them.
This game takes a quest.
This game takes a bit a sort of artistic license similar to Nier in showcasing what projectiles actually are. So they could literally be anything. Like in this case, I guess pollen that the plant sprays. One advantage also that the light magic gives you: any enemy in neutral state gets one-shotted by no matter what kind of magic do you possess. The sad thing is that this is also balanced by the fact that the game will not have much more neutral stanced enemies, and instead we'll have only colored enemies from this point onward. But it will be useful when you backtrack to previous levels in order to get some collectibles that you missed.
But yeah, that's the thing too. Like, Housemarque's thing when it comes to that partnership is basically releasing games around the launch time, because Super Stardust HD was released in the launch year, not in the launch specifically, but still within the launch year. Resogun was a launch game for the PS4, and now Returnal also releases within the launch year. So I guess,
like I mentioned, I know we also did the Dead Nation, but I haven't played it nor seen much of it to know how that is. I remember that Nation was mentioned as one of those free games that Sony offered as an apology when they got hacked. So, but I actually never got it.
yeah.
See, Jova, that's what I mean. When the music is good enough and you want to just groove at the beat while waiting, you do that.
Yeah, I can see what you mean. It's a good track.
Again, like I mentioned, the composer does a good job in terms of having ambiental. Again, reminder, this is from the same composer of the Angry Birds games.
I definitely can hear that in it.
Wait, what?
Yes.
I forgot the specific title, but yes, it's the Finnish composer that also composed for the Angry Birds games.
And I can sense it. It's got that definite use of the drums he likes to have.
Is it? I don't. Screw. Angry Bird 2. Avenger Bird is where it's at.
What?
If you guys don't
Next
know,
time Tony talks,
I can't pronounce his name, so I'm gonna ask one of you guys to post it right here.
You were saying, Pedro, what's this about Avenger Bird?
hold on, let me. Ari Pulkian. No, sorry,
Ari
Pulkinen.
Pulkinen.
Ari Pulkinen, most likely. Yeah.
Yes,
It's
that's his name.
It's Finnish, needs a lot more waffles. So
Basically, Jova, it's an indie game made by just one Ukrainian developer that my brother had to review.
oh man,
Let's just say, Jova, it's a very, very bad pixel 2D platformer. Like,
Really?
Yes, it's called. To give you an idea, Jova, it takes the Super Mario World, Donkey Kong Country approach when it comes to strategy, and it has a shit ton of levels, you know. However, it only has one music track playing for all of them.
oh brilliant.
Oh no.
Is the gameplay at least good?
No. Let's just say the game is incredibly frustrating because the mechanics are very bare bones and the levels aren't really designed in a way that is fun. The game
Alright,
is
so
very
so you're let's playing it. Gotcha.
No, thank you. There's very little to gain from us commentating on that game, Deji, because that game has a shit ton of levels. The story amounts to this bigger bird, kidnapped your family, go save. So there's literally nothing to say about that game.
What exactly
Also, occasionally, like-
what type of gameplay does it host?
Well, how about this, Jova? Feel free to go on. It's on the Switch and on Steam. So go on your Switch and see if you can get it and see what you think, or check some
I'm
games.
sure
Also-
you've commented over worse and more mundane games.
Also, anyway, similar to Zelda, in Zelda fashion, before actually facing a boss of a dungeon, you need to get a key from in order to access the boss room. You have noticed also there are a set of like butterflies flying, flying insects. Those are kinda your magical GPS. They give you at least a direction, a hint to where you're supposed to go. I don't really think you need it. The levels are streamlined pretty, in a pretty clear way to give an idea where you're supposed to go. Even the branching paths only take you just, a bit so far, and the map is very intuitive. In how you actually navigate it. So it's not too intrusive. I will say that I've seen more intrusive GPSs. So this one is actually pretty fine on its own, but I can actually live it without it. Oops. There we go. Yeah, there we go. For instance, the map pretty much tells me that I can go up there and will be probably a secret because it's not much of a big area. While if I continue, actually, I can go through the intended path. It's also amplified by the fact that, as you can see, there are a lot of hieroglyphs all over the place, similar to Nazca paintings, ground paintings, that pretty much tells you also the direction to go. So when it has the components of a typical Metroidvania, it also streamlines a bit the direction you're supposed to go. Like I mentioned, I feel like there is not complete 100% freedom in how you play it. You need to get some particular power-ups in order to progress some of the future levels. But there is the replayability value in order to get the collectibles, like I mentioned, which is a thing that modern Metroidvanias tend to do, like, say, Strider 2014, for example. There we go.
How was that game, by the way?
Strider 2014, awesome. It didn't cost that much at launch. I think it was like $30-40 tops. It's very fun to play. You can complete it in. Okay, I personally completed the Speed Demon trophy, which apparently in my country is a language. It's actually renamed to be a Spaceballs reference, by the way, as in ludicrous speed. That requires you to complete in less than 2 hours. If you're good at speedrunning the game, you can complete it in less than 2 hours, but you really need to rush it and not get everything. There are a good lot of collectibles, a lot of references. As a story on its own, it's fine. There's a bit of lacking production value because sometimes you get some cutscenes where the camera goes a bit close and personal, and you can definitely see that some models are unpolished. And there's no mount movement, for example. So I get the idea it could have worked. They could have worked a bit better that aspect. But honestly, it's a perfectly good, serviceable entry for the franchise, and I wish there were a bit more games like that.
Well,
And-
I know that the director of the game or producer is the one who was the stronghold for Mega Man 11.
And it was done by Double Helix, and like I said, it was at that point where Double Helix was finally finding its feet before
And then they
getting
got bought
purchased by Amazon.
Whoops.
Wait,
Whoopsie.
wait. So it's confirmed that Helix Games helped out with Mega Man 11?
No.
More
Strider.
like a person that worked on Strider 2014, Jova.
Ah, okay.
the director Koji Oda. It was the director. Of,
Helix Games is definitely one of those companies that I feel they had potential, but they didn't have a good way of showing off that
No,
potential.
I also have another game that we did that I recorded, but we had to wait a bit before doing that. The HD version of the game based on Battleship.
So basically, Job, it's the same argument you were making for Sanzaru.
Well, okay, let's. It's complicated. Sanzaru are people who. Okay, yeah, they too had potential. Actually, yeah. Maybe it is the case here because I'll say this: I do feel like some of the fault is their own for not always showing off the best of potential, even when they did have the chance here. Again, unless there's some behind-the-scenes stuff I'm not aware of, because again,
But remember, Jova, we were a small team done by the people who fled Interplay. Oh, there you go, the Guardian Key. And they were basically entangled in a lot of crappy licensed games for a long, long time, like
So
G.I. Joe Rise of the Cobra.
Capcom, real quick, Koji Oda was also the director of Resident Evil 0.
huh, nice.
Neat.
That's the thing. Honestly, though, maybe I'm guessing what happened was they lucked out incredibly with betting on Bluepoint to allow to give them the reins to God of War HD collection. Maybe that's what made them open to maybe giving Sanzaru a shot with the Sly franchise.
Okay. You
Well,
know
the
what?
problem with the
Okay,
slide
hold
franchise-
on. To be fair, I don't blame them for giving Sanzaru a shot here. I do feel like Sanzaru could have done something amazing with the Sly franchise.
And they wanted to make it.
The-
That's the thing.
Oh yeah, sure.
The problem,
Sony allows their devs to make whatever they want to make.
which is a double-edged sword in a lot of ways. But when it comes
And
to
also, it also depends how much faith we have in the project.
Yeah,
I'm
that-
calling PlayStation All Stars Battle Royale.
Yeah. That's one thing we have to remember. With Sony, we normally recognize them for letting the developers do whatever they want. But Sony, we have to remember, have a long history of not giving certain franchises a proper chance just because they don't have faith in it, or just because they personally aren't into it. And that's not even getting into the whole treatment
metal.
And that's not even getting
That's
into...
just one Edge. Edge is perfectly.
We can be here all night if we.
Again, okay. I'm not. I don't want to generalize. Every company that has built, a range of IPs is bound to have
Of
things that
course, and I
they will
wish
forget.
people realize that.
At the same time, I still think it's kind of a waste, but it's not topic, at least at the moment, because we're having our first boss fight, the Golem. Every time you enter a boss room, you get this kind of ominous type of thing.
All right.
The interesting thing about this is that, mind you, the checkpoint for these bosses are non-existent. These bosses can be very ruthless. You have to perfectly shit in one go. If you die at any point, you have to restart the entire fight from the get-go.
You know what? I'm kind of used to bosses being that way, ironically, so I guess it depends on what they're like. How okay I am with this.
This is a weird Shadow of Colossus remake.
I also really dig the models that they have also for the bosses. Since they're gigantic, they still use this kind of cel-shading nature that they have. But the lines, the Tron-style lines that reflect the kind of, magic they're using is pretty neat.
Yeah, what helps...
Say that,
What helps this art style in the sense, like, well, it's essentially this. You're looking at, essentially, shadow blobs here. but the things, sort of the background colors on them, are what help give them defined shape. Like, okay, without the blue on our hero currently, he would just appear like, you know, a black shadow. Without, you know, the red and yellow highlights on this guy here, we wouldn't be able to tell all of what's going on with him here and there. It is interesting here. You could argue it's minimalistic, but it's minimalistic in a good kind of way.
Also, the music is perfectly complements these two.
Yeah.
And also the battle arena is more in the rain, so again, everything it's done better. And yes, it literally makes laser rays on top of you, so you need to dodge the ones, there you go, the ones that hurt you. Again, it's pretty neat in how this game is presented overall.
Remind me, can't you like switch between blue and red freely?
We haven't collected the shadow magic yet, Jova, so we're stuck with only one for the time being.
Oh yeah, that's right, I forgot. The last time we were able to do that, I think, was with like the...
With a
Hero of the
flashback.
Past.
It was a taste of power, kind of like of a deal.
But the music here is just the right mix of energetic while also, you know, atmospheric. So that neither overpowers the other, and it works as a memorable enough tune.
Wait, Theo, can't you switch colors?
Not yet.
No, not yet.
I have to gain shadow magic first, Edge. And I will get that in the next part, basically.
But yeah, it's interesting.
You were saying, Pedro?
It's interesting to say that because in the exact same year that this game came out, Bluepoint released the Eco and Shadow of the Colossus HD collection on the PS3.
Yeah.
I forgot if I mentioned this. Well, okay, I did mention the fact that the PC version runs very smoothly. But yeah, in general, this game runs at a flawless 60 frames per second. I haven't seen a single drop every time that I played it, both normally and for recording.
Well, from a technical standpoint, it's a very simple game, so it's very easy to accomplish even with the hardware of its time.
True. Well, that's the thing. I've seen some particular indie games that try to perform a similar type of task with an easier graphical compartment and still chugged potentially. So I will give the praise on this aspect if it's present, to be honest.
PS3 is capable of running Mortal Kombat 9 in 1080p 60 frames per second, so clearly it's still...
okay, maybe for the fight, but okay, I have to check it again, to be honest.
The gameplay itself is insane. Yes, the cutscenes are in 30 FPS, but, well, they're cutscenes, you know. But the gameplay itself is in 60, so... Remember, the game is even running on Unreal
And there
Engine.
we go. We get our first major activation key that will unlock the sister, and also a new power-up, the ground stomp. This kind of like the ground stomp. It's the same move that you can perform in games like Hercules, basically. Again, also Strider 2014 will also have a lot of power-ups similar to these. And now, every time you finish a boss and go back to the origin, we get a sort of a mini backstory to what the boss was.
Carved from the bones
Nice.
of the earth, the golem was the protector of the land. The gods themselves set him to stand guard on the Temple of Eternity.
That doesn't sound very fun.
Heart
It's a
betrayed.
job's a job,
For
dudes.
love of the prisoners of time, he forswore his sacred duty.
No, I guess he agrees with you.
Yeah.
So basically, the
Well,
goal.
that's
so
your lesson, Lives. If you forsake your duty, you're gonna get destroyed.
So basically,
But I don't want to stand around in the same place for all eternity. That's
So-
boring.
so
Would drive me
basically,
insane.
so basically, the guy became a simp for the villains, and that's why we had to put him down.
Kind of. Anyway, join us in the next part, where we'll get to the second major set of levels of the game.
See ya.
Yeah.